Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is agreement. Agreement. Now, if you've ever bought a house, bought a car, bought something like that, maybe getting a loan for it, there's a lot of paperwork to go along with it. And that contract, that agreement that you're signing, right? You are agreeing that, hey, I'm going to make the payments here. I'm agreeing that every month I'm going to do this, or whatever that contract is. And it's not just buying things, but there's other contracts that you're saying, hey, I'll do this, or you get somebody working on your house, or working on something, you get them to sign a contract. This is what my part is. This is what your part is. And so as we come to Numbers 30, we have to understand that God doesn't call, in most part. You have the Nazarite vow is one thing, but, by and large, there's no vows required as I guess probably what we think of in agreement type things. And so in Numbers chapter 30, what God is instructing them is like, look, when you do make a vow, right? When you, of your own volition, you go ahead and you make an agreement with God, there's some stipulations that go with it. And I guess we should already be aware that we should be very cautious, with even using something as with like the term as God is my witness, right? I mean, you're swearing by God, right? Hey, he's my witness. Or, people say, I promise you, or as God is my witness, I'm going to do this. That's a vow. And sometimes, honestly, we've probably all said something to that extent that we did not fulfill. How many times have you prayed, God, if you'll just do this, if you'll just answer this one prayer, this one request, I'll be in church every Sunday. I'll give X amount to the church, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And then maybe God kept up his end of I'll just call it the end of his end of the bargain, and yet we failed to fulfill ours. That's what I want you to keep in mind as we talk about agreement today. So Numbers chapter 30, the first two verses, you'll find out something very clear for a man if you say it, and then we'll discuss about if a woman had made the vow. So in the first two verses, then Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which the Lord has commanded. If a man makes a vow to the Lord, or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Now, if you go on and read, you will see there's some stipulations for the ladies, right? It specifically says for a young woman, think of one still living at home, and she makes some type of vow, and when her father hears about it, he can basically do one of two things. He can either agree and say, yep, that's exactly right, that's what you need to stick to, or he can say, no, you're not going to do that, and God would absolve the young lady of anything on her part that she had to do. He would just annul the whole vow. The same was true if it was a married woman, or even a young lady that once she got married, then her husband then found out about it. He could say, nope, we're not going to do that, and his word would go. You also find that if while married, if a wife had made a vow, the first time, and it's a kind of a stipulation here, the first time the husband hears about it, if he says something and says, no, we're not going to do it, that's it. But if he heard about it and was silent and did nothing, then the vow stood. And I just mentioned that only because I think it's interesting that maybe one commentator is pointing out, maybe it's because of Adam's silence in the garden, right? That Eve took of the tree, the fruit of the tree, and Adam was there with her, and you don't hear him saying anything. So maybe it was because of that. But if a woman was a widow or divorced, there was no one that could kind of trump her vow. So that meant her vow stood. Now, having said all of that, the key is this, right? Obedience to God is first and foremost. And this is clear throughout Scripture. So just because somebody made a vow that was ridiculous and didn't stand up to, right? Obedience to God and the word that he'd already told them is always going to be first. So I don't want us to get this out of context. At the same time, right? Because think about it, he's talking about all the offerings and everything else you're giving to the Lord. But here, what he is saying is that it's important that when you say, God, I'm going to do this, right? As they were bringing offerings and making a vow to the Lord. They're bringing something to the Lord. And I promise I'm going to do this, whatever the case may be. It's kind of like even as you hear in the New Testament, man, let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're not going to do something, then don't do it. I hear about the fact that, it used to be, man, you could settle a lot of things just with a handshake and somebody said they were going to do it and their word was good enough. And today you can barely trust anybody to fulfill their word. But here's the one thing. When we make an agreement with God, don't take it lightly. Take it serious. Remember, there's nothing that God is telling you have to vow. You have to do this or do that. But, when we get saved, if we're saying, Lord, I want to make you Lord of my life, shouldn't we just work on fulfilling that? Shouldn't that be the vow, the promise that we've made to Him from the beginning that we should continue to strive after each and every day? Of course, we're going to fail as we go along, but shouldn't we strive to be more like Him each and every day? Remember, as we talked about, that all these things were in addition. He's trying to make us more like Him. So today, if there's anything that you can take away from this, it is knowing this, that your word, your promises, your vows, your agreements to God, He's keeping record. And His desire is that if you're going to make those things, fulfill it. But also remember, He doesn't require it of you. So don't go out of your way to put more burdens on yourself than what He's leading you to do. Be careful what you promise or agree to do. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.